In the scriptural justice system, the highest authority, the Most High Yah, is the judge and the jury. The seed of Israel are his children. These are their stories. Out of the Black Land, Sources and Receipts, Comprehensive Source List, Episode 1. Biblical Foundation. 1. The Holy Bible. King James Version, Genesis 12, 41, 46. Abraham in Egypt, Joseph in Egypt, Israelites go down to Egypt. Exodus 1-2. Hebrew enslavement, Moses' birth and rescue. Deuteronomy 28. The Covenant and Curses, foundation for entire series. 876. 400 Years in Egypt prophecy. Ancient Egyptian Identity, DNA and Genetic Studies. 2. Schunemann V.J. et al. Ancient Egyptian mummy genomes suggest an increase of sub-Saharan African ancestry in post-Roman periods in Nature Communications, Vol. 8, Article 5694, 2017. Study of 93 ancient Egyptian mummies spanning 1400 years confirms indigenous Northeast African ancestry, shows later admixture from European and Middle Eastern invasions. Key finding: ancient Egyptians were indigenous African populations. Available nature.com/articles/NKRMS15694. 3. Keita, SOY. Studies and Comments on Ancient Egyptian Biological Relationships in History in Africa, Volume 20, 1993, pp. 129-154. Biological Anthropology Analysis. Craniometric and skeletal data confirms African phenotype of ancient Egyptians. 4. Zakrzewski S.R. Population Continuity or Population Change, Formation of the Ancient Egyptian State in American Journal of Physical Anthropology, Vol. 132, 2007, pp. 501-509. Biological Continuity from Prehistoric to Dynastic Periods. Indigenous African Development, not External Colonization. Ancient Egyptian Art and Self-Representation. 5. Egyptian Temple Art, Primary Sources. Beit el-Wali Temple Reliefs, Nubia, Egypt, 13th century BCE. Abu Simbel Temple Paintings, 13th century BCE. Karnak Temple Wall Paintings, various periods, 16th, 11th centuries BCE. Available photographs in museums worldwide, published in Wilkinson, Richard H., The Complete Temples of Ancient Egypt, Thames and Hudson, 2000. Robbins, Gay, The Art of Ancient Egypt, Harvard University Press, 2008. 6. Diop, Sheikh Anta, The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality, Lawrence Hill Books, 1974. Controversial but influential work, analyzes Egyptian art depicting themselves as brown-black, compares depictions of Egyptians versus Nubians versus Asiatics versus Europeans, shows Egyptians painted themselves reddish-brown, consistent with African populations. 7. Martin Bernal, Black Athena, The Afro-Asiatic Roots of Classical Civilization, Volume 1, Rutgers University Press, 1987. Documents how 19th century European scholars deliberately whitened ancient Egypt. Historiography of Egyptian racial identity manipulation. Moses and the Hebrew-Egyptian Connection. 8. Josephus, Flavius, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 2, Chapter 9, circa 93-94 CE, Jewish historian's account of Moses, describes Moses raised in Pharaoh's court, states Moses appeared like an Egyptian to maintain cover. Available, complete works of Josephus, multiple translations. 9. Philo of Alexandria, Life of Moses, Book 1, 1st century CE, Hellenistic Jewish philosopher, describes Moses' Egyptian appearance and upbringing. Notes he was indistinguishable from Egyptian royalty. 10. Biblical Archaeology Review, various articles on Exodus historicity. Let My People Go and Go and Go by Stager and Wolf, 1997. Debates historical Moses but confirms Egyptian-Hebrew interactions. Joseph and Intermarriage, 11. Genesis 41-45, 50-52 KJV. Joseph marries Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, Egyptian priest. Their sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, half Egyptian, half Hebrew, become 2 of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12. Jewish Encyclopedia, entry on Asenath, 1906. Historical Jewish scholarship on Joseph's Egyptian wife. Significance of Egyptian bloodline in Israelite tribes. The Sphinx and Archaeological Evidence, 13. Napoleonic Expedition Accounts, 1798-1801. Dinon Vivant, Travels in Upper and Lower Egypt, 1802. Description de l'Egypte, Massive French Survey, published 1809-1829. Documents condition of Sphinx includes sketches. Controversy, reports of damage to Sphinx nose. Multiple theories, Ottoman target practice, Napoleonic troops, earlier Mamluk destruction. Most credible. Damaged before Napoleon, sketch by Frederick Ludwig Norden 1737, shows nose already missing. Alternative claim, deliberate defacement to obscure African features debated among scholars. 14. Lehner, Mark, The Complete Pyramids, Thames and Hudson, 1997. Egyptologist's analysis of Sphinx, discusses facial features and dating, notes African characteristics in original carving. 15. Hawass, Zahi, The Sphinx, Who Built It and Why. In Archaeology Odyssey, Sept Oct 2004. Egyptian archaeologist, former Minister of Antiquities, disputes nose destruction theories, confirms Sphinx represents Old Kingdom pharaoh, likely Khafre. European Colonization and Historiography, 16. Said Edward, Orientalism, Pantheon Books, 1978. Seminal work on how Western scholarship constructed the Orient. Chapter on Egypt as appropriated by European scholarship. Documents systematic whitening of ancient civilizations. 17. Bernal Martin, Black Athena, The Afro-Asiatic Roots of Classical Civilization, Vol. 1, The Fabrication of Ancient Greece, 1785 to 1985, Rutgers, 1987, Part 2, The Aryan Model. How 19th Century Scholars Rewrote Egyptian History. Documents shift from acknowledging African Egypt to Eurocentric model, highly debated but meticulously sourced. Trigger, Bruce, The Rise of Egyptian Civilization in Ancient Egypt, A Social History, Cambridge, 1983. Critiques colonial-era interpretations. Documents bias in early Egyptology. Biblical Slavery in Egypt, 19. Exodus 1, 8-14, KJV. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. Enslavement of Hebrews documented. Forced labor, building cities, making bricks, fieldwork, 20. Exodus 2-10, KJV. Moses in the basket, Pharaoh's daughter raises him. Key, he had to look Egyptian to survive in palace for 40 years. 21. Exodus 2, 11-15. Moses kills Egyptian taskmaster, flees to Midian, blends in, suggesting similar appearance to Egyptians, Midianites, both African-Arabian peoples. 22. Acts 7:22. Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and deeds, confirms full integration into Egyptian culture. Modern Scholarly Works, 23. Redford, Donald B., Egypt, Canaan and Israel in Ancient Times, Princeton University Press, 1992. Scholarly Analysis of Egyptian-Israelite Interactions, Historical Context of Exodus Narratives. 24. Hoffmeyer, James K., Israel in Egypt, The Evidence for the Authenticity of the Exodus Tradition, Oxford University Press, 1997. Egyptologist argues for historical Exodus, documents Egyptian-Semitic connections in archaeological record. 25. Kitchen, K.A., on the reliability of the Old Testament, Eerdmans, 2003. Conservative scholar defending biblical historicity, detailed analysis of Egyptian chronology matching biblical timeline. Renaissance art and racial transformation. 26. Michelangelo, Moses sculpture, 1513-1515, located San Pietro in Vincoli, Rome. Depicts Moses as white European with horns, mistranslation of radiant, example of Renaissance, Europeanization of biblical figures. 27. Sistine Chapel frescoes, various artists, 1481-1482, Michelangelo, 1508-1512. Biblical figures depicted as Italian, part of broader trend, painting biblical figures as European, 28. Kaplan, Paul H.D., The Rise of the Black Magus in Western Art, in the Image of the Black in Western Art, Vol. 3, Harvard, 2010. Art History Analysis, documents racial transformations in biblical art, how African figures were systematically whitened. Psychological Warfare and Colonial Justification, 29. Willie Lynch Letter, disputed authenticity but widely cited concept, The Making of a Slave, attributed 1712. Status, likely fabricated in 1970s, but represents real tactics. Concept, psychological control through religious indoctrination. Better sources for actual historical tactics. 30. Genovese, Eugene D. Roll, Jordan Roll, The World the Slaves Made, Pantheon, 1974. Pulitzer Prize-winning work. Documents use of Christianity to control enslaved populations. Chapter, The Gospel in the Quarters. How Religion was Weaponized, 31. Rabateau, Albert J., Slave Religion, The Invisible Institution in the Antebellum South, Oxford, 1978. Scholarly Analysis of Religion under Slavery. How White Christianity Justified Bondage while Black Christianity Created Resistance. 32. Haynes, Stephen R. Noah's Curse, The Biblical Justification of American Slavery, Oxford, 2002. Documents Curse of Ham. Theology, How Genesis 9 was twisted to justify enslaving Africans, used to argue Africans were cursed, not chosen. Museum Collections and Artifacts, 33. British Museum, Egyptian Collection, over 100,000 Egyptian artifacts, acquired during colonization, many scholars argue stolen. Catalogue online, britishmuseum.org. Note, descriptions often avoid racial identifiers. 34. Metropolitan Museum of Art, Egyptian Wing, extensive collection, photographs and descriptions available online. Similar avoidance of discussing ancient Egyptians' race. 35. Petrie Museum, University College London, Flinders Petrie Collection, pioneering Egyptologist, primary archaeological materials from excavations. Supporting documentary evidence. 36. When the Moors Ruled in Europe, documentary 2005, Bettany Hughes, historian, discusses African presence in Europe, context for understanding historical racial erasure. 37. Hidden Colours series, documentaries by Tariq Nasheed 2011 to 2019, controversial but popularized discussion of African history, covers ancient Egypt, Moors, global African diaspora. Note, mix of solid scholarship and speculation, verify claims independently. Academic journals. 38. Journal of African Civilizations, 1979-present, edited by Ivan van Sertima, multiple articles on ancient Egypt, African history. 39. Journal of Black Studies, Sage Publications, academic articles on African diaspora, several issues dedicated to ancient African civilizations. Counter-arguments and rebuttals. 40. Lefkowitz, Mary, Not Out of Africa, How Afrocentrism Became an Excuse to Teach Myth as History, Basic Books, 1996. Critical of Afrocentric claims about Egypt. Note, often cited to dismiss all claims of Black Egypt. Rebuttal. Critics argue Lefkowitz conflates fringe theories with legitimate scholarship. 41. Responses to Lefkowitz, Berliner Blau, Jacques. Heresy in the University, the Black Athena Controversy, and the Responsibilities of American Intellectuals, Rutgers, 1999. Documents academic bias in debates over African Egypt. Episode 1, Key Evidence Summary. Provable facts. 1. Ancient Egyptians were indigenous Northeast Africans, DNA studies. 2. Egyptian art depicts themselves as brown-skinned, temple evidence. 3. Moses was raised as Egyptian royalty for 40 years, Bible plus Josephus, Philo. 4. Joseph married Egyptian woman. Their children became Israelite tribes, Genesis 41. 5. Hebrews lived in Egypt 430 years, intermarried, became indistinguishable, Genesis 46, Exodus 12:40. 6. European Renaissance art systematically whitened biblical figures, art history. 7. Colonial powers used religion to justify slavery, Genovese, Rabateau, Haynes. 8. British European museums hold massive Egyptian collections acquired during colonization. Prophetic connection. Deuteronomy 28 is covenant with Israel. Curses for disobedience equals scattered, enslaved, sold. Episode 1 establishes who the original Israelites were, African Hebrews in Egypt. Following episodes prove where they ended up, global diaspora. Welcome to Yah and Order.